All right. So let's get to it. My name is Nick. Dave is here, and Joe is here with us. It's Joseph, right? You don't want to? You want me to call you Joe, or you don't
You
like
could
that?
you could call me Joe.
Okay, okay,
I always type out Joseph, but Joe's totally fine.
okay. Awesome. Yeah, because some people like their name is Billy, but they want me to call them Billy, not Bill. So I just want to make sure.
Nah, I mean I like hearing Joseph, but Joe is easier.
Okay, awesome. So
Love it.
I was gonna tell everybody how I know Joe, right? I used to go to David Lindell's apartment, like boot camps, like every one of them. And then I ran into Chris Tucker, and Chris Tucker at that time he had like 3,000 units and all this stuff. And I was like, Chris, we live near each other. Why don't we hang out? I got to know him, and then I was like, yo, like, so who do you use to like? Do you guys do you work with lawyers to do closing? Because he was out of Philadelphia. Chris is out of Philadelphia, and then two, like who if you do, who you recommend? And he's like, oh, work with Joe. He's my lawyer. And I was like, oh, so does he just do closings for you or anything like everything else? And Joe, he was like, no, Joe does not only closings for me, but SEC paperwork for me for all my apartment complexes and stuff like that. And so that's how I ran into you. And then from there, I've been referring business, but I also have like other funds that I set up where I was like, yo, we got to use Joe to set up the fund, or else like I don't want to waste my time doing it.
Yeah, I think we met in Manhattan at a Dave Lindell event. Does that sound
We
about
did.
right?
I don't even know
I
because
believe there was an event in Manhattan at a hotel right near Penn Station. That might have been the first time I met you, if that's possible. Chris
no,
was presenting
that
that,
sounds very right because I
and
knew.
he invited me up. Uh, yeah. Anyway, Joe Console Matison LLP is my law firm. We can drop that in the show notes if that's something that you do. We have offices in Haddonfield, New Jersey, Media, Pennsylvania, and in downtown Philly. Me, a partner, some paralegals, some admin. We do. My partner's strictly a family law attorney. He's one of the best attorneys that I know, and I'm super lucky to be partnered with him. And I dedicate my practice strictly to real estate work, strictly transactional work, and that does include a majority of my work being syndication work, fund work, private lending, as well as a smattering of other things for investors like zoning work in Philly and around the city. And I think that's kind of the key points, at least for this discussion, and a couple other smaller things. But I'm not a litigator. I'm not kicking people out of their apartments or fighting your contractors for you. But I'll help you get into the agreements, but not.
But you got people. Though.
I got people. Yep. To that end, I do North Jersey closings as well and that sort of thing, but I don't really advertise that as much. It's kind of a cherry on the top for folks that I work with, investors, wholesalers, that sort of thing.
Awesome.
Is that sufficient?
Along with Joe, we have Dave on the podcast with us. He's my business partner in Philadelphia. He's like the guy I talk to in Philly. I try not to talk to too many people, and because of that, it's just Joe and Dave. That's it. So anything real estate related, I just go to Joe and Dave, and that's my goal. So today's event's on private lending. And if we have time, we'll cover like a little bit of raising capital. What kind of led me to this event was it was like about, I would say, like 8 months ago or so, maybe even longer than that. I was approached by the DA of New York because there was some people that were getting scammed, and they were people that also like are members of my club, and they wanted me to help them get their money back. And so the DA came out and they talked to me. Well, I came out to them and I talked to them, and they presented me details, and I presented them what I knew, and then I saw like the big mess with everything, and I realized from that experience, like if people just knew, like one, what kind of paperwork they should do if they were ever to be private lending, and then two, what kind of due diligence they should do on the the person that they're investing their money with, if they just got those two basics down, like even if the paperwork alone is correct, you're already like way more than halfway there. And then in terms of being able to kind of like make your make your money safe. But if you also know how to like do due diligence on the deal, do due diligence on the investor, the person you're investing with, it's guaranteed that you'll be able to protect your money, or it's a lot safer. And so that's why that led me to this event, because I think private lending is a great business for people that don't want to be very active or involved, and but it has to be done correctly, or else like don't get distracted by the rate of returns, because that's what people are into. But that rate of return is not as important as actually getting your money back, And so you have to always look like, hey, how do I get my money back? And then is the rate of return, or better yet, am I actually getting my money back? And then is the rate of return worth it? And so with that said, I want to go into like the first question. I'll ask the opening question, then you can ask the second one, Dave.
Okay.
So the opening question is like paperwork wise. What are some paperwork we should be using?
Well, actually, you kind of like spurred a good question in me, and while you were talking, I pulled up a opportunity checklist that I've used for folks to present to them, folks that are looking to invest and are presented with an opportunity. I have a very extensive spreadsheet, which has, I don't even know how many items, but way more items than you're going to want to fill out, which deal with the two crucial pieces which you mentioned, which are the who and the what. The who, of course, is who is sponsoring this deal and what is their experience and can you trust them? And the what is the deal? The one that I pulled up is a single investment, a syndication deal, getting involved with lending money for a fix and flip, just say. And the problem that you're going to run into when I present something like this to you is you're going to not be able to answer half these questions, and you're going to realize that you haven't thought about it enough. And some guy has just told you, put in 50, you'll get out 70 in 2 months. And what does that mean? Do you know anything about the property? Do you know how much the construction costs are? Do you know what the potential overages are? There's all sorts of questions that you might not know to ask. And as I've, it's my 13th year in business, as I've matured in this business, I've started to tell people, hey, it doesn't seem like a lot of money and the upside seems good. Still, if you don't do the due diligence, I'm telling you, there's at least a 25 to 30% chance you're going to get screwed. And so that's kind of I just wanted to touch on that. But before I moved into the documents themselves, and if any of your listeners or watchers or whatever want a copy of one of these samples, I'd be happy to flip it to them. And it's really, I don't know. What do you think? It's something that I put together. I'd be happy to kick it to people if they want it. I don't know how to do that.
What I mean is, like, do you want them to email you? Do you want me to just blast it out, or?
Oh yeah, why don't you put my email in the show notes, and if someone wants it, then they can reach out. I'm not I don't have anything to sell. I am who I am, but if you want a sample spreadsheet that you could use, I'm happy to kick that to you. So yeah, put my email in the show notes.
I want one.
All right, cool. And this is one I've used for several borrowers, and I've improved over the years. And it may seem extensive, but the same way that I'll give somebody, I don't know, what's a good example? If they're hiring a contractor, the scope of work document, when they look at it, they say, oh my God, this is like, you need to shorten this to 3 questions. And I'm like, yeah, if I do that, you're going to not ask 97 important questions. So that's similar to what I'm presenting here. So anyway, know who you're dealing with. And if you don't know how to evaluate a deal or a person, you got to figure it out, or you have to figure out who you can pay to help you do that. Because if you don't have those skills, you're going to get fleeced. Anyway, so your initial question was regarding documents for private lending deals. If I'm giving you the full package, I actually pulled up one of those too. This I won't give out for free because this represents years of my education and time and hundreds of hours of time. But the we always open with what's called a post-closing agreement, and what you're going to see in these private lending packages is if you've ever, for example, refinanced your home, you're going to see a lot of these documents that mimic those documents, but are changed for the circumstances of being hard money or off-market deals or that sort of thing. So we try to create a similar level of oversight and a similar level of ease for the lender in terms of dealing with the borrower and the borrower dealing with the lender. If there's defaults on the borrower, the lender's got outs. We'll go through that stuff. But the opening document we call the post-closing agreement. It basically says that if there's any minor items, that need to be changed, that you agree to change them, just like you would do in your mortgage or your refi. Then the promissory note. The promissory note is the legal document that is what you would present in court in the event that you had to prove that there was a debt between the two parties here. It lays out everything. It lays out the property address. It lays out the payment details. It lays out any ideas of extensions, and crucially, for private money and for hard money deals, it lays out things like confessions of judgment. Confessions of judgment are not something that borrowers ever want to see, but every single sophisticated lender is going to include them. What's a confession of judgment? It's a document that allows the lender to essentially take over the property and try to mitigate their losses. So it might be a situation where, in Philly, for example, if you have a deed in lieu, which we can talk about in a minute too, if you guys care about that, but if you have a confession and a deed in lieu, you can effectively take the property over from the borrower if they've defaulted and start, for example, hiring another GC to come work on it and get the property in a place where you can mitigate your losses and move on. That doesn't mean that the borrower doesn't have defenses to try to fight you, but if you've got this stuff, you can immediately jump in and mitigate your losses. And then on the side, you're dealing with their court battles and that sort of thing too. But it's not a surefire way to get your money back, but it's a good way to mitigate losses. Am I going too fast, or
it's good.
I never know if I'm talking too fast. I just
don't worry. We got to record it. So
I do have a question before you proceed.
Yeah.
Like you do, like this is like a whole screening process, and before you even start, it starts with the screening. So you do that for everyone, right? If they hire you, correct?
Yeah, and I deal with third-party companies that do that too, because I know the right questions to ask, but I don't profess to be someone who knows how to fully evaluate a real estate deal, nor do I want to take the liability on of evaluating a real estate deal to tell you that, all right, I mean, I'll get all the facts for you. The debt on the property is X. They're claiming it costs Y to rehab it, but I'm not going to say that it's definitely going to flip for Z, because I'm not just going to, I mean, I do happen to be a real estate broker as well, but I've run into enough situations over the years where I know that I need to stick to my silo. And so there are third-party companies that create that connection and evaluate the metrics of the deal for you, and evaluate what we can present, the LLC docs from the investor, for example, whatever else is publicly available about the person or group that is, asking for your money.
I got it.
And then, either you come up with it or you pay someone a point to get in there and give you their best idea of whether or not the deal makes sense. But then ultimately, obviously, it's on you. So
you got people. It comes down to you got people.
I got people. Yeah, there's enough professionals here, and there's enough money to be made on good deals that it's worth it. to spend up front, absent it being some sort of sweetheart deal, your aunt's house or something like that. So that's the promissory note. It always ends with the payment schedule, which if you've ever looked at your amortization table or something like that on your home mortgage, this is similar to that, but hard money is 6 months, 18 months, 2 years at most. So these are much easier to read. You just start and you have all the months. What happens? What other fees? Is there a consulting fee in there for your for whoever helped you evaluate the deal? Were there points up front to the lender? All that kind of crap. That's where you're going to see that in your promissory note. And then your mortgage, of course. There's two kinds of mortgages. Well, there's several kinds, but for these purposes, if it's one property that you're lending on or borrowing on, there's just a regular mortgage, which is for the exact amount, meaning the lender is giving the borrower, $50,000 at the table, and that $50,000 is the extent of the loan. Or it could be a situation where you're doing an open-ended mortgage, where you're actually acting as an inspector and as a bank, and these are for larger deals where you're going to do an open-ended mortgage, where the mortgage could be for, you agree to lend them up to $200,000 or something like that, $50,000 initially. They get started on the work, and you go and inspect, and you say you've got through demo, you've got through rough-ins, whatever else. I'm going to release another $50,000. Here's what it's going to be for X, Y, and Z. Here's what my benchmarks are for you to get the next trench of money. So that's an open-ended mortgage where if you have to foreclose on it, you're going to have to prove that you not only lent the initial 50, but the second 50 and the third 50. And that's what that mortgage allows you to do. It allows it to vacillate in its maximum amount. Any other mortgage related questions? This isn't like a home mortgage. This is very clearly states in here that the borrower is not moving into the property. Therefore, borrower does not get the federal protections and the state level protections that a borrower would get if they were moving into their primary residence. I've seen these things go bad where you just trust. You say, well, I got a promissory note and a mortgage from this borrower. I just thought it was good. And then you say, well, did you notice that he's moving into the property? It says in here that he's going to do that. So now you're in a completely different category of foreclosure here, one that affords them months and months of protection and regulatory hoops that you have to jump through to try to mitigate your losses. And effectively you can't, because you can't confess a judgment against someone who's in a primary residence. And
that's
just so you know, these last 18 minutes, if I just hired you, like I had this loan I did, I was 8 years ago, and I spent $32,000 just to fix the loan through lawyer fees. But what you did with me in the last 18 minutes, I could have avoided all that. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah. Okay. So then, all right. Then I'm saying valuable stuff. Then that's good.
100%.
All right. Cool.
I just want to make sure the audience gets this. So the loan, the private money loan paperwork is the promissory note, and it has details of the loan and things like that. And then is that correct?
The promissory note
creates, and then
the promissory note creates debt.
Correct.
That's how.
But then the lien is the mortgage document itself.
Correct. Yep.
Right. And
the evidence is the debt in the public sphere.
Okay. And then so when you're looking to do private lending, I mean, from the very beginning, if you're going to do it first time or even second or third time, you should really consult a lawyer.
I would say for the cost benefit analysis, it's ridiculously cheap to get a lawyer like myself involved. Right.
And I mean, even if it I would either get the borrower to pay for it, the fees for it, or if you're gonna pay for it, it's just get it done with the first 5 times, so that way you get familiar with the process. Would you agree?
I would say yes. I think that's good. And then into the future, if you have a deal that's functionally identical, You know what I mean?
The cost is going to be, if you use lawyer again, it's probably going to be significantly less because it's going to move faster too, because the paperwork.
Yeah, I always tell people you can expect it's going to be 7 hours of my time the first time we deal with each other, and then it's going to be half that or slightly more because I've already got all your information. I know how you work. I know what we're going to do. How easy or difficult it's going to be, and so then moving forward, that sort of thing becomes cheaper. So there's a benefit. Obviously, the documents are personalized for every deal, but there's at least 2 hours that I'm knocking off of my time because we've dealt with each other before and I've got most of your side information.
Right. Like any questions, Dave?
No, I'm just thinking about what he said. I mean, like as simple as he made it, like these things really happen to people that I know, such as the residential. It didn't take months; it took years. So hire a lawyer that knows what they're doing. So
yeah, it's better to pay to get in than to try to pay to get out.
Right? Yeah, totally. I hired a lawyer, but I hired the wrong one.
That's another thing too. Don't think every lawyer is the same. You gotta find something that's special.
That's another thing. Yeah,
I'm not the guy that's going to
because
I'm the guy that's going to get you into it smartly.
I want to say that. I want to point that out. That's a good point because the lawyer that I hired was a general purpose lawyer, and I mean he's familiar with real estate, but I think with in regards to the business of private lending, it wasn't safe. It wasn't structure safe, and because I did private lending for a period, and I only stopped doing it because I had a bad experience.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and like what you said, it took me 2 years to foreclose.
You shared
that was bad. And the funniest part is we also even had a deed in lieu and all that stuff. We had all that signed, but we didn't know if it was legitimate to record it. so like, and he's the lawyer, and I'm like, hey, can we record this? And he's like, I don't, so it's like, and so I had to go through the foreclosure process.
If it's a strictly commercial transaction, you can get that deed in lieu on there. They can challenge it, but what it allows you to do, like I said, is mitigate your losses while they're fighting it. You're still going to be able to get in there, hire people, and all that stuff because you become the technical owner of the property, even if you still have to go through the foreclosure process on the side, the commercial foreclosure process. You become the technical owner and you can mitigate your losses.
I get it. So you can like access the properties, what you're saying, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's what it's about. It's about mitigating losses. You made a deal or you trusted someone that you shouldn't have trusted, and you got to try to get out of it with, that is why a lot of lenders take money up front, points up front, because that money they think of as a way to pay their way out if things go sour. Like they've already got that banked. And obviously things like the lawyer's fees, the foreclosure lawyer's fees are included and get pushed onto the borrower in the event of a default, but you're not getting those. It's just a way, eventually, say the borrower's halfway into his deal and the judge is going to say, well, you owe X amount of money back to this borrower, but no, I don't, because in here it says he's got to pay my lawyer's fees, he's got to pay X, Y, and Z, and then you're cutting down on any equity that he might have earned in the property by paying on it for so long. Make sense?
Yes. All right. So we talked about the promissory note. We talked about the mortgage. So we're pretty much done with private lending in terms of how to protect yourself paperwork-wise. Is that correct?
Well, if you're going to, is it valuable to get into things like construction loan agreements and that sort of thing, or is that probably too far afield?
What kind of agreements?
Well, like so.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about it. Like you're literally, I didn't know you were gonna give like a whole thing on like almost being a hard money lender, right? Because typically for me, like when I just raise one sum, and then I use it for the incremental rehab stages.
Yeah.
But what you're actually gonna share is maybe like it's not even something people are even aware to ask.
Oh, okay. Is that bad or good?
It's good.
I think that's good That's good, but it also might be too advanced. But go for it. And then we can.
There's other topics that we can touch on, and I can, but that's fine. But things like assignments of rents and leases, construction loan agreements, that are all part of the loan package that I've been perfecting, like I said, for over 10 years. So, and then there's all kinds of like little things that bind an individual to the LLC, personal guarantees for the owners of the LLC, and that kind of shit. That is probably not well served to get specifically into documents, because that maybe would be on a course just about documents. But hopefully the idea of what we're doing, I've explained that well enough. Okay.
Yeah, you have that. Yeah. Cool. I think anybody that wants to go hardcore into private lending, where they want to be super safe, even with the rehab stage, they should just reach out to you and just hire you to consult them for the first few transactions. That Joe's email is right in front of the screen, and you can also go to the website for his phone number. I'll post up your phone number in a second. But let's go to the next stage. What's the next question, Dave?
What are the rules of raising capital right now?
We're in raising, right?
Yeah.
So that's a broad question. Like what specifically are you asking? Like, are you allowed to advertise?
Everything.
Yeah, exactly.
What can we do? What should we not do? How can we get in trouble?
So I think that this might immediately step us sideways into the discussion of funds and syndication deals. But the short answer is that it depends on what type of investor you're soliciting. So if you Google around and you're looking for an opportunity that's publicly available on the internet for, say, a real estate fund, a real estate fund, if your listeners don't know, is essentially the same as a hedge fund. It's where you are investing money with a group of people who are using it over a period of years, just call it 5 years, that's probably average for the work that I've done, to invest, profit, reinvest, and along the way you get paid at different benchmarks. To get you into that fund, you have to sign what's called a syndication agreement, as well as a bunch of other documentation that allows the fund to be exempt from SEC regulations. SEC regulations also touch on what you brought up initially, and I didn't mean to go around in a circle to get back to the beginning, but the idea of what you're allowed to advertise is paramount to this discussion. If you are presenting a property or a fund or a project to folks of a certain accredited income level, then you have a different set of rules than if you're trying to advertise to non-accredited investors. Now, the idea of accredited versus non-accredited, and there's other levels, sophisticated investors, qualified investors. The idea that the SEC has here, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is about protecting the public. So they want to know that if you're publicly saying on a website that we'll take 50 grand of your money for this deal, that you are also only accepting money from folks who have the money, one, and are smart enough to actually lend that money. Those folks are everyone besides the non-accredited investors. If you're talking non-accredited investors, you essentially can present the idea, but you can't really come out and say that you want people to email you to invest. Now, say you have this deal, and if you Google PPM, private placement memorandum, real estate deals, you'll get a bunch of websites that'll have these deals. You'll see that they're very careful. They tell you about the deal, but they don't link you directly to the document. So they'll say, reach out to Nick Tang about this particular deal. And then as soon as you reach out to Nick, and not to just single you out, but then you'll get an investor questionnaire, for example, that will say, if you want this PPM, here's what I need from you. Check one of these boxes. Are you an accredited investor? Yes, I am. Okay, prove it to me. I need proof that you've got X amount liquid. I need proof that from your employer that you make $350,000 a year, and you have to submit this stuff with the questionnaire, which is Nick doing his due diligence to know that when he then sends you the investment documentation, that he can sleep well at night, knowing that you're someone who is allowed under the rubric of the law to invest in this property. In this project. What this is effectively doing, and Nick and I had talked about this before we got on camera, is allowing you as in this scenario, Nick, to take on investors who have no say in how he spends their money. You have an LLC, which technically could have 100 members, let's just say. In order for you not to trigger an SEC violation or oversight, those investors need to have a say in what you're doing with the money. They need to have a seat at the table. They need to have a vote. They need to have a voice. That does not apply to private placement memorandums that are done correctly. The oversight rules, as long as you know that you're getting into this thing as an accredited investor or even non-accredited, which we'll talk about in a second, Nick knows that he is going to get your money and you can't fight what he does with it. You've put your due diligence in, you've read his experience, you've seen what he's going to do with the money. As long as he follows what he explained to you he's going to do, meaning, I don't know, invested in Hudson County, New Jersey or something like that, mid-cap properties, whatever it is. As long as he stays within the rubric of what he explained he was going to do, you have no say. You can't fight him. You can't do anything. That goes against the LLC model, which is that everyone's got a seat at the table, and if enough of investors ganged up on the guy who was making bad decisions, they could effectively boot him out. Any questions?
Wow, that was awesome. I got a lot of them. Right. Because I didn't know that. I thought I didn't know that. That's so interesting. So in essence, I just want to review what you said because I got a lot from it.
Okay.
So what you're saying is, if I was to want to just control the money, as long as I follow the rules of what I said I was going to use the money for, no one can say anything as long as it's raised in a PPM and everybody qualifies to invest.
Correct.
And then, or you can do it a different way where it's like an LLC. You have an operating agreement. Infinitely
easier to just set up an LLC and issue a membership certificate, to Dave.
So that is 100% legal. Because I always thought passive investors automatically make it like not something that triggers the SEC thing, but I was wrong on that. So what you're saying is everybody is allowed to do that as long as they get the right to vote.
Yeah, right. So it's the idea of, so you said passive investor, and that's a technical term in this world. So let's just say someone who's putting in money versus someone who's putting in sweat equity. An LLC, the three of us could start it. I put in all the money. One of you guys sources all the deals, and one of you guys handles all of the construction in some kind of a way.
Right.
We versions of equity in, and we each have a vote. There's always a split tie because there's three of us, so decisions can always be made efficiently and effectively. No decision is made. We set the rules of what triggers a vote and all that stuff, and it's all perfectly legal. So even though I'm a passive in the colloquial sense of the term passive, I'm not, because I'm active in the company. Passive in the SEC sense means that you don't have a say. Like if you think about if you do any kind of like investing through a financial advisor, you'll get your reports from I don't know, Hightower or LPL Financial, and it'll say that we moved your funds into these particular shares, whatever it is, Vanguard. Right. And you don't get to tell Vanguard what to do with your money. All you can do is choose to pull your money out of Vanguard, subject to whatever rules and penalties there were when you got your money into Vanguard. And so that's how you can think about these funds too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally get it.
Cool.
I think it's a pretty high level conversation, but I got it. I love it.
I didn't know you didn't want that.
No, I wanted that. I wanted it. Yeah. Because I just wasn't expecting you to answer that question in like so easily, because I thought it was like, because I've worked with other lawyers that are not. I think you have a higher specialty in lending, Joe, because I worked with other lawyers where they're not as aware about this. They would set up LLCs, people would put money in it, and the voting concept was never even mentioned.
Okay.
And and so I always thought that was not even something that was like accurate, and I thought that was either raise single loans and do private money paperwork, or go PPM if you're doing money with more than one person.
Yeah.
But actually, so if there was 4 people and 2 people were putting money in, is it still okay for me to set up an LLC as long as everybody has voting rights?
You don't need, it's a little more complicated than that, because it's also not a bright line test of what makes someone a passive investor or not. But if you just think about it like that, like 4 guys can get in, 2 can bring money in, as long as everyone's at the table at these quarterly meetings and and things like that, then you could create a scenario where you could have, do an LLC. There's a lot of one-off private lending syndication deals. I'm looking at documents now that I'm working on. This is an example where someone's looking for $500K, and he has a preferred rate of return that's decent. He has a side letter because he's investing so much that's really beneficial to him. A side letter is where you have slightly different terms than other investors who might be putting in 20 or 30K. And it's all about getting that raise, but not wanting these folks to have any claim to the property itself. Whereas with the LLC, the 4 of us are going to buy a property together and we all own it. At the end, we all get paid. There's, as a member of the LLC, you can't just be kicked out and be given your money back. You can have an LLC where those could be the rules, but it's not that 3 people are voting someone else out because they want to make more money. It's that, I don't know, Joe got arrested for a crime of moral turpitude. I stabbed somebody at a bar, or something like that.
Right. Right, I get it.
I've done bad things, but that's not one of them. But for example, that in that case, then the other folks could vote me out, or I personally go bankrupt. That's something that you could vote somebody out for. So there's typical things like that a syndication might be able to say at any given point, we can pay Nick back plus his 12%. Plus whatever else he's entitled to, and we can shove him out the door and move on. So like a good way to think about that is like if you own stock shares, like my buddy owns stock shares. He got hired by a pharmaceutical company and they gave him X amount of stock shares. And a week later, that company got bought out by AstraZeneca or whichever big company it was. They said to him, "We're taking all your stock shares." And he said, "Okay." And they gave him, whatever it was, $150,000 in cash. So he lost all of his stock shares, but he got everything he was promised and more. But he had no say in that. It's not like he could have fought back. He just said, "I agreed to these shares, and as a shareholder, I have no say in that sort of thing, except to get paid out." I don't know if that analogy makes it anymore.
No, I get it. I love it.
Just to like. Different people know about different things. So that's how you can kind of get around to explaining things coherently.
Wow.
I think I also want to review this part. When you were talking about raising, like what you said there, and I just want to make sure I got it right. And correct me if I'm wrong. So as long as they're all accredited, you can give them details. You can give them like everything every detail of information. But if you're talking to people and you don't actually know, or you don't have a personal relationship with. Is that true too?
Correct.
You should
so
really get
personal relationship, like the solicitation bit is also not a bright line test. So it's like, how did this person find out about you? It's really crucial if they're non-accredited investors, meaning they don't prove on paper that they have the financial wherewithal and knowledge to give you $50,000, that it's really crucial that those folks are not easily proven to be folks that you solicited. Like if you and I met at a networking event, at a Dave Lindahl event, and I said, "Yo, Nick, I got a deal," and you're like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if I qualify. Don't worry about it. Well, I'll send you the paperwork. I email it to you. I take your money and blah blah blah." It turns out that you make $60,000 a year, and you've only got $3,000 in savings, and you give me $2,500, and you can't pay for your kids' daycare bills or whatever it is. The whole point is the SEC is meant to protect the public, and not have jerks like me out there saying, "Give me $2,500, and a week from now I'll give you $7,000." No, that's not how it works. So, it's the solicitation bit. You can't publicly, but if it gets to be something where I'm dealing with an accredited investor, and Dave says to Nick, "Hey, a good friend of mine / client, Joe, I'm getting involved in this deal. I know that he's got room for some non-accredited investors. Why don't you reach out to him?" I at that point, you and I can talk. We can eventually get to a point where I can send you the same investor questionnaire. You can prove to me that you've got that money and that it's not going to be a financial hardship in the event that you lose it, because that's what it's all about. Is you have to. The SEC assumes that any dollar you invest is a dollar lost, potentially, and so they want to be able to know that charlatans are not out there taking grandpa's retirement money, that sort of thing.
So
I forget how
any questions
around to that.
Dude, there's so many questions that I can't even ask you.
No,
Ready? I'm like, what's the rule of thumb? Do you know, like, for the SEC to consider if it's if it's safe or not? Like, that's one question.
If it's safe or not?
Like what is the percentage? Is there like a ratio of income versus what you can lend that makes it safe viewed by the SEC?
Like for a non-accredited investor?
Yeah.
No, there's no bright line test. It's you looking at it. You can have folks sign things that very clearly state this is not blood money. In the short version of that. But it's none of the regulations are what they call bright line. I mean, the accredited investor, qualified investor stuff, I don't have all those pulled up, but that is bright line, and so that's it. Either the switch is on or the switch is off in terms of whether these folks qualify. But beyond that, there's no bright line for this. Just like, is the investor passive? I went down so many rabbit holes to try to tell someone definitively, and the answer is, here's a case where this person was determined to be passive. Here's a case where this person was determined not to be, and it's about a totality of the factors.
You made me think of questions that I didn't know I had. All I got out of it was call you.
Yeah, call me.
So I got a question. All right, so I got a lot from this, even though we've only been on for 45 minutes. My next question is for a newbie raiser. Okay, how do you think they should raise? Should they do private money loans and then LLCs and then funds, or because they cost differently too? In terms
then what's your example? Am I someone that finds deals? Am I someone that has money but doesn't want to get knee deep in the responsibility of deals? Or
okay, that's a good question. Yeah. Let's do one where you're the guy that has the deal, and you're trying to raise capital. And then once we're done with that, we'll go into the other guy as the lender.
Well, if you're the guy that has the deal, it might be that Nick knows how to manage a construction team, and therefore I'll get him in on the LLC. Him and I also need money. We get Dave in on the LLC, and then the three of us talk what's fair. When we sell the property, what's fair? Dave gets paid back plus what profit. Nick gets what profit at that point. And what is our expectation of Nick that he'll put in 30 hours a week on this? Is it as needed? And we put all that into the operating agreement in a way that makes us a team, and we're creating a business where different skill sets make the business run. I think that's a great starting point. If you have a deal, I guess the scenario requires, if you're going to do a syndication, the scenario requires you to have knowledge of how, the construction process will go. And I'll set up something where I need $500,000. I'll do a syndication. I want passive investors, just money people. I need to prove to them that I've got Dave who knows how to do the construction, or whoever it was. And then I get their money, and they have no concern about anything except checking in to make sure that the process is going along, making sure I'm doing what I said I would. And then, within 5 to whatever my promise was, that I'm marketing the property and I'm getting it sold, they get paid their profit for the money. And then it's not their concern what I've paid Dave to be my construction manager. So that's kind of different. You've got the money here, and you've got your construction guy. He could just be a guy for hire in that scenario, whereas in the LLC, it's all a team that's coming together and bringing their skills in, or their capital.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's like a recipe.
And then as a
like a recipe right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then as a passive investor, how would you recommend?
If you want to be a passive investor, I think you got to find someone that has deals, or people that need it. I personally recently have started talking to my network and saying, if I've got X amount of money, what would you recommend? And it seems to me that there is a certain floor, maybe $50,000, that is a useful floor for folks. Like, you may find that people want smaller amounts here and there, but having a certain base that you can safely lend out. And now I've got folks who are out there saying, hey, I've got that enough money myself to fund this project, but I'll take 100 so I can deploy my capital in other places. And then you're creating a relationship like that. So I don't think that there is a bright line answer to, if I'm just someone who wants to lend money out, what to do with it. There are companies out there that make connections between borrowers and lenders, and also evaluate the deals, and that could be a way to go too. But I think, going to networking events, or going on your real estate mastermind Facebook group, and just letting it be known that you want to source and fund a deal, I think is a good way to start. And then you'll go down different rabbit holes, and obviously don't sign anything or give anyone your money.
Right.
Until you feel like you're being smart about it.
All right, I'm gonna open up the Q&A from the people that are tuning in right now. But
is anyone tuning in? We're going to know that?
Yeah, you can't see that. Yeah, only on my side you can see it. We have like about 60 people on it.
Oh, sick.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, is there because I remember saying that, like, before when I was raising, like, there's a cap on how much interest you can charge before it gets, like, illegal, Till
it becomes, like, the words usurious, till it becomes technical usury. I've seen 18% get by as fine. I think if you're creeping up to 20% and things like that, that's not fine. I think something around 12 to 15 is probably a high end of what you should be charging. But like I said, I've seen slightly more than that and have that be totally fine. The what's the right word? The skills and the experience and the money availability of your borrower is going to dictate how much interest they're willing to pay. If they've got 10 Joes willing to lend them 50 grand, they're going to obviously pick the one with the most favorable rates. And if there's a guy who's willing to take a 30% interest rate, then maybe that's not the guy that you should be lending money to, frankly, because it tells you something about their ability to get capital from other places. It may be that they're just new to the game, but you need to try to figure that out.
And is there any rules to the length, like the term of how long or how short it has to be?
For which scenarios?
Actually, each one, like if you're lending private or if it's funds.
Yeah.
Well, what do you recommend? Like, if you need more money for a year, do you recommend raising? Better yet, what do you see people raising? Like when they're doing private money loans, it's typically a year. When you see syndication, is it typically 5 years?
Yeah, so like private money, you're going to see a lot of bridge loans that are loans meant to get you from a point where the property is a C rating to an A rating, and you can refinance and pay someone back. Those bridge loans, which might be 3 months or 6 months, might be twice as much as a 2-year loan would charge an interest if you're going to be rehabbing an entire building and that sort of thing. But as for the syndication deals, it's not really the same idea. It's not really interest payments like a private lending deal is. It's you effectively profiting off of the profits of the property. So you put that money in, you're expecting to get an internal rate of return of 10 to 12%. But there's benchmarks. Like, it might not be that the money comes to you quarterly, because this particular syndication deal is a fix and flip, or a very large version of that, a 400 unit property in Oklahoma that you're rehabbing the rental units and getting them re-rented, and then you're going to sell in 5 years. It's not going to be that in the first year you're going to be necessarily profitable, because while you are getting rental income, you're also kicking people out, rehabilitating the units, and getting them rented for a higher rate. So that's all spelled out in your syndication and opportunity documents, like when to expect these payments to come. But the ultimate rate of return is meant to be thought about over the life of the loan. So you've got a rate of return of 10 to 12%, let's just say. So you put in 50, that's a very low number, but you're going to get back 55 or whatever. Plus you're going to get back what your investor percentage is. So what we didn't talk about, and is just now too late, I got like 5 minutes, but is that you also get paid, along with the sponsor, you get paid a profit percentage at the end of the deal. So you're getting your rate of return, which is your interest rate, if you think about it like that, and then you get a profit at the end when the thing becomes profitable. And the other good thing about things like syndications or Reg D funds is the investors get paid before the sponsor does. So the sponsor gets a little kickback in the form of manager monies up front, and then the investors get paid, and then eventually the waterfall trickles down and gets to the sponsors themselves. The last 20% of profits go to the sponsors, or 10% of profits, or whatever that particular deal offers.
Joe, what's the preferred rate of return that you see a lot with the funds and the private money loans? Like, because everybody's thinking, you got to be paying about 12% or so.
Yeah, I would say 10 to 12 is, if I had to think about the ones from 2020, that's the number. And then the what's the right word? What you really are in it for is the profit payout. When you have turned over all 400 of those units and you sell it, then the equity payout is where you become a rich person. Instead of someone who every quarter is getting a check, which is going towards your eventual 10% rate of return, because it's not year one you're going to get all of it. It's like they're going to figure out maybe year two you get a big chunk, and then year three they owe you less, and then you know what I mean. So the rate of return is meant to be aggregate over the life of it, and it can be here and there, and then you've got the big payout at the end, hopefully, or there's all kinds of stuff I could sort of spiral into now, but I don't.
Right. We only got 3 minutes left with you. I want to ask some of these questions that people are asking. So what's the cost to do to get like 1, loan paperwork, 2, do the LLC one, and then 3, do a fund? What's the cost difference look like?
Just a 1 deal loan paperwork, we started at around $2,500. That's super competitive. I have been at the table closing loans where I see a New York attorney charge $7,500. That happened once, and I charge less than half that, and I'm just like, fuck, that sucks. But I've also done enough deals where I know that I'm making a good amount of money, and I feel good about what I'm charging. So that's, I would say, and those have gone down as you move along, like we talked about earlier. What were the other two? Other two prices?
Oh, what's the cost for the LLC one? Yeah, and then versus a fund.
Oh, so the fund itself can run you $20,000 because we're handling all of the oversight, all of the SEC filings. That's just a big pickle. But the beauty of those are the investors themselves, as they pay you, you're paying me. So they understand that a certain little nips and naps of what they're sending you is being used to pay people like the lawyer. So if it may seem like a lot to pay someone like me $7,000 up front for something like that, but eventually, if you fully go through with, like, I've had people start funds and bail and they're for nothing, and I'm like, you paid for 700 pages of documents that you're not using. But I've also, but then eventually, as the process mills along, you get that money back. So
right.
That's a bit of an in and then an out. And then syndications themselves, just one-offs. They're under $10,000. That's a one project. It's not an ongoing situation.
So wait, did you say the LLC can go up as high as 20?
No. I'm saying like a Reg D fund, like private placement memorandum. The LLC itself, no, I can get you into those for under $2,500. If it's just me as the lawyer, you and your three guys coming up with a deal, you want to purchase a property, you start a single purpose vehicle, an LLC just for that purchase. We have a 1 hour meeting. Everyone talks about their concerns, what they want to add, what they want to bring to the table. We put it into an operating agreement. We tweak that till everyone's comfortable with it, and then you've got something to go on there. And then in those scenarios, I'm stepping aside. Whereas with the one-off syndications or the funds, I'm monitoring it and submitting stuff to the SEC as it goes along. So the more oversight obviously costs more money.
Awesome. Joe, I know it's time for you to go because I think you got another appointment. So thank you so much. I'm going to put your contact information up for everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
Just be prepared to get blasted.
Meet you? Yeah, please. Everyone email me. I'll do my best I try to get back to everyone within 24 hours. We'll see what happens.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Nick. This was an awesome opportunity, and it was great to get to talk to you.
We'll talk again.
Peace, guys.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that was incredible, dude. Because I've done private money loans, and we're still live. Yeah, I know. I want to have the session go live. And I got I've done a private, I did it with Albert way back, and it took us like 2 years to repossess this one deal, and then after that, I was like, I'm not doing this again. But I hired a lawyer that was like very, very popular, very, very respected in the community as well, to prepare the paperwork. But another thing, like you guys have, like people that are on the call that might not be aware of, is how you go in is actually the most important thing. Because if you go incorrectly, it's going to be very hard to come out if a problem occurs. Because going incorrectly, what it means is like the lawyer's job is to make it so that way, if something does happen that causes things to go wrong, you can come out safely. So you have to go in paperwork correctly so that way you can come out safely if something goes bad. Like what Joe was saying, and he didn't specifically say this because I think it's like an automatic thing for him. But when he was saying like how if you want him to set up an LLC, like one person is providing the money, the other person's managing the job, blah 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 blah. Like you can go on U.S. legal forms and buy a template for an operating agreement and create that yourself. But what Joe does is he puts in there things like, what if the contractor fails at completing the job? How does he get voted out? Or what does failure look like? So that way we have the right to vote him out, even though it's 3 people that are able to vote. Like it's almost like he. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Like we can buy these templates anywhere for $25, $50 because that's what. Well, I've been at U.S. Legal Forms. That's where I got my paperwork when I first started.
don't do it, man. Don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the part that that the lawyer comes in and does. Because the lawyer, like I did a closing way back a long time ago, and I met the lawyer that wrote like 75% of all the templates that all lawyers use. And he's like, yeah, we all use templates. I made like 75% of them. Like I went to his office, and his office like was like a library, right? And he was like, yeah, I wrote all these books. All they were was just legal paperwork. And but and so because so at that time I thought, oh, okay, if they're all the same, I can just go to US Legal Forms and buy it. And what you get is the template, but it's how you use the template is what we're like. If you're not aware of that, that's why sure, you can fill out all the lines and all the dots, but if you don't set things up correctly, you can actually lose a lot of money, because it's almost like it's like a prenup. It's like they're preparing for failure. So it's
So
not preparing for success.
something that you said too, if I may.
Say,
So
yeah.
I want to explain from personal experience too, because I'm a smart, so that goes ahead and research things, and I think I can just fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I've learned is, like, when you do deal by deal, you need that customization, and you don't necessarily know how to change it. You're like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then later you just find out, I did it all wrong, and this contract is kind of like not good, And when you do these things, just remember, right? You're paying for the details. It's not just a big picture thing. When you just, if you listen to Joe, he made me think about questions that I didn't even think about, because he's been in it so many times. He has the experience to think about these things, whereas it might be your first time or your 10th time, but he's done it hundreds of times. And when you do it that many times, you get to see things and know things that people can't foresee, because just because, like, you're basically new, and you don't even know what you don't know, and you gotta be aware of that. It's
I think what makes Joe different is, like, he's probably seen a lot of mess up failures.
yeah.
It's kind of like you have to see a lot of them to come up with ideas and like how to prevent something like that from happening again. Whereas, yeah, sure, you could have done it 10 times or 100 times, but you never failed once, and so you think you got it perfect. But then some guy comes out and cleans out your bank account because you thought you had it like down, because you did it so many times. So it's not about just how many times you do it. It's also like you have to kind of like fail so that way you can, or mess up so that way you can learn. I want to.
All the guys that mess up all the time. That's why they're experts.
Right. Yeah, we mess up a lot. I want to say this. So the next 10 minutes, I want to talk about how to mitigate risk in terms of the opportunity. We interviewed last week Steve Lloyd. So today we talked about two things. We talked about how to protect your money as a private lender, right? How to raise money legally, which was really simple. It's just you can talk about whatever you want. Just don't talk about the opportunity, don't talk about the rate of return until you know if they qualify to be a accredited investor. You can Google that, what a accredited investor looks like. There's also websites that, and then once they say if they say that they're accredited, they have to prove to you that they're accredited, not you prove to them that they're accredited. Be aware of that. And then, so we covered a lot. And then from there, there's 3 ways to set yourself up: private money loans, paperwork, the LLC structure as a partner, and operating agreements and stuff like that. And then the third is the fund, right? And then now I want to talk about due diligence on the opportunity and the borrower. Okay, so let's talk about due diligence on the opportunity. Let me think. Yeah, so like so there's what's called like industry standards, right? What I mean by that is, like, there's an industry standard in terms of like what a single family property looks like, a good single family property fix and flip deal looks like. The industry standard is you got to figure out what the ARV is, right? ARV stands for after repair value. From there, you got to multiply that number by the industry standard of 0.65. So if the ARV is $1 million, you have to multiply $1 million by 0.65, and the number you'll get is 650,000. From there, you have to figure out what the rehab is. If the rehab is 200,000, for example, that means take the 650, you subtract 200 from that, and you end up with 450. Okay. In essence, the person that's buying the property has to be buying it for 450 or less for it to be an what's called a hard money lender approved transaction. Hard money lenders are pretty much the largest amount of lenders, or the community of lenders that lend to people that do fix and flips. They control the most money in terms of lending to those type of people, and because of that, they created that as a standard. And so, could you lend 70% instead of their 65% rule? Absolutely, but you're putting yourself at risk because these guys are doing it at 65. They've lent so many transactions and they've messed up and lost money and had to repossess so many properties over the since inception of their business, that they realize that 65 is the safe number to be at, or the percent to be at. Anything else you want to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, I do. That's 100% right. Even when I deal with people that I didn't realize what I was doing, because when he mentioned that role about the person that screens the deal, that's what I do for my friends that lend and stuff. So I'm that screener. I didn't even realize that.
You're like the broker, the money broker.
Yeah, I am the money manager or whatever. But I didn't know that though. I just do it because I'm just trying to keep my friends safe, because I'm like looking over the deals, looking over the construction and everything. But 65% is usually what it is, and sometimes it could be even less. But usually after the relationship's developed and you've proven yourself, they could lend more. That's my personal experience, because it depends on how much inventory and how many deals are out there. It's a lot of variables, but to keep safe, you have to be within that 65% rule. So I just want to point that out.
I also want to say answer some questions. So you guys have questions regarding to what we just covered, feel free to ask. I'm going to answer the first question that I see here. Nick, where are the best places you find private lenders? Dave, you want to answer this and then I'll answer mine, or we'll take turns?
Yeah. For me, because I've been doing real estate, and real estate events. Like he was just talking about real estate events, networking events, Nick's events. I meet it through friends that know what I do and they've seen my results. So I would first say that you got to have results. If you're not making money, no one's going to come and talk to you about, hey, I got money to lend. So you got to produce a lot of results. And when you produce consistent results, people will come and say, hey, I would like to, do something together with you. And that's when the conversation starts. So I always have to get results.
So with that said, once you actually have some business or a track record of sort, whenever you have the opportunity to speak, take that opportunity, because when you speak, you are in essence telling not one person but multiple people that what you do, and you're actually good at it. The other thing is, people are automatically drawn towards wanting to talk to a person that is not only speaking, but they're speaking from the stage. Because why is this person or these few people out of the room of 50 or 100 up there versus everybody else? You guys follow? So if you have success in the business already, whenever you do have the opportunity to speak, definitely do it. The other thing is, if you never get that opportunity, it's simple. You just got to talk to us. You got to be like, Nick, I do fix and flips. Nick, I do buy and holds. Or you got to go to other real estate associations and do the same. No one's going to invite you to speak if they don't know that you do what you do, So be aware of that. I'm always looking for people that I've never invited to speak before to speak. The reason why is because, one, I used to be where you were, where nobody knew me, and then so I had the struggle of going through the process of figuring out how to get on stage, and so I know how it feels. And then number two, I just lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? It's speaking, right? And number two, yeah, like even if you're shy, right? Do it anyway. it's amazing. It's amazing what the world can open for you. Like I have a friend named Albert Wu. Albert, he knows what he's doing, right? And I always bother him, because he's my boy. So I hope it's okay. I'm like, yo, Albert, come up, man, speak, talk. And so from that, he got the benefit of meeting private lenders, but then he ended up meeting his wife. You never know.
Oh, you saw that.
You never know what you're gonna get. Like, one of the, like someone from the audience one like was so intrigued by what he did. Like they got to know each other, and next thing you know, they dated. Like you don't know what's out there. It's like you don't. So you're looking for private money, but you might end up with a surprise.
So I want to share my own personal experience with raising. I don't have the courage like Nick to go speak on stage, but I still want to start. So, you always start off with your friends and family. Like first you produce the results. I started with family, and family introduced me to friends. And I'm always out there helping people, and I got friends looking out for me and saying, "Hey, I know someone like another family member or a friend's family member that's looking to do this. Why don't you talk to them?" And one by one, I started. And now I can go to one person, and that one person is saying, "Hey, Dave, I like what you're doing. We've been working together for 8 years." I can reach out to my network of friends. And now once you meet one accredited lender and you do the right thing with integrity and you produce good positive results, they're gonna come back. And after X amount of deals, they run out of money. They run out of money, and they say, "Hey, Dave, let me help you out by introducing you to my other friends that even have even more money." So, it really goes like a long way if you do the right thing and just keep going.
To be honest with you, I think I'm gonna send everybody that's on this session with us access to the session we did with Steve Lloyd last week. The reason why is because Steve talked about raising. He's raised a total of $40 million for his investment fund over the last 14 years, and so he has a lot of great tips on raising that I want to make sure everybody on this stream gets.
It was amazing.
It was really good. Yeah, I loved it. I've been in the business for a while. I've experienced it, but I learned a lot from Steve and his game. And then even today, like I knew about the private money loans. I knew about the funds, but I didn't know that the LLC structure actually was legal. I thought for all this time it was illegal, and that all these guys were doing it illegally. But I'm glad I was proved wrong. Like it's amazing. Learning something new every day.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I used to hear that, I used to get scared even by lawyers, like, "Oh, you're gonna break the SEC," and you get really scared. And it's really important to know experts that focus and do one thing. And when you ask them, they know your concerns, they know your questions, and they can take you to like even more in depth, deeper, and figure out. They can show you how to get around things. You know what I mean?
Right.
You follow the rules, not get around like break the rules, but
yeah.
and do the way.
This is the way. Yeah. So I'll give you guys some tips on how I raise, so that way we'll give you like a comprehensive list of strategies. So for me, I talked about this actually yesterday on a webinar. I talked about how when I first started, I was just wholesaling, and I was making money wholesaling. And then one day we ran into a deal where my friends that were wholesalers with me, my business partners, they were like, "Yo, Nick, we should buy this deal. It's $100,000. It doesn't like it was 85,000, and $15,000 worth of work, so it's 100,000. It's worth like 300, and it makes $3,000 a month. Okay, because it's a rental property, it's a 3-family. We should just buy it, and then we can just sell it for 300 or refinance it, whatever." And I was like, "Well, okay, if you guys think it's a good deal, let's try to buy it." The thing was like, up until that point, my whole business reality of real estate, because I got into the game as a wholesaler, I never thought about buying, and so I was like, well, I don't have like $100,000 laying around to buy this thing. And then they're like, well, a lot of people, because we've wholesaled a lot of transactions at that time. So all I did was I asked the people that I wholesale deals to, hey guys, I got this deal. I'm not looking to sell it. I'm looking to raise capital for it. I can pay you guys 12%. Would you guys be interested in lending it? Well, first of all, they already have a relationship with me because they've done business with me. Not only that, they do the business because they bought properties from us. They know what a good deal looks like, and because we have the relationship, they were like, yeah, no problem. Like, and here's the funniest part. I sent out an email to about 25 people, maybe even less. It's probably like 15, and I would say within like 10 minutes on the email, it said, hey, I got this deal. I'm not looking to sell. I'm looking to buy. I'm looking for private money. Um, if you guys are interested in lending, give me, let me know, and then I'll reach out to you. I would say within like 10 minutes, 4 people emailed me back saying, I'm interested. I can lend you all the money. You know, I thought that once I got the first email, I was like, oh, okay, it's just one email. But then once I got 4, I was like, okay, this looks like serious, and as soon as I hit 4, I was like, looks like it's serious. I'm going to send out an email, and the email is going to say, hey guys, I got the deal funded. Thanks so much for looking at it and supporting me, in my growth in the business. And then what happens is once I sent that, I would say like 10, 20 minutes later, I got emails about people complaining. They were like, Nick, I didn't even get to open the email and it's already funded. Oh, I wanted to fund the deal, blah, 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 blah. And so that's how I did it. And so as time went by, whoever I did business with, or whoever I sold deals to, I tried to always include them in that email pool. And so I grow that email pool bigger and bigger and bigger by doing business with them. This could be a realtor. This could be a mortgage rep. This could be a attorney. Like I just naturally do it, and this grew really really big, really really fast to the point where I was able to raise a lot of capital to buy properties in Philadelphia, Allentown, New Jersey, all over like the tri-state area, and so that's how I did it, and that's why like it's a really interesting strategy because it's kind of like you can work with one lawyer and then you can include them in the email, or you can work with 10, right? And then because now you have a working relationship with 10 lawyers that represented you for closings or whatever, now you can include them in this email, and because of that, it's almost like a way, or it encourages you to not just do business with one, but do business with as many people as you can, because you don't know when they're gonna say, yeah, I want it, or I want to do this, or I can help you.
Yeah. Since you're sharing, I might as well share too. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, not many people know that. Like I do coaching for real estate, but some of you guys may know. Like Sean would be a good example. But I have multiple other people that I coach, and I started coaching because I really wanted to help people, and people didn't understand that in order to be successful and have people that want to give you money, you have to do a lot of deals. So every time I try to introduce in the beginning, I try to introduce people to my lenders, and I just want to help people out. None of my lenders wanted to lend to people because they said, I don't know them. And I realized that was like the biggest barrier, right? So what I started doing was like, hey, I started doing business like in joint ventures with these wholesalers like Sean and everything. And I start building the capital out for them once they build a track record. So they start working with me, and then later they can just go off and deal with my lender. Or in Sean's case, he just like, hey, Dave, I'm just gonna stick with you. I'm gonna do what I do, you do what you do, and it made life easier. So sometimes, even though the journey sounds hard, like when I listen to Nick, I'm like, dude, I don't want to do that, My advice would be work together with people, right, that have done it before, and just kind of like jump on the wagon, right, and say, hey, what can I do today? Because I've done this with multiple of my students where they start wholesaling. They didn't have money. No one has money starting off, and that's okay. but you got to be willing to go out there and do things like wholesaling, or if you do construction. I work with a lot of contractors too now. I got like three or four in the pipeline right now that they do construction. They have track records, and I'm starting a relationship with them to make their lives easier because they got stuck in the construction game that they never became an investor. So I'm always showing people how to grow level by level. And just let me know like what you guys are doing, because whatever you're stuck, like there's an expert, that's Joe. Nick is helping me out. Like he's my business coach for stage speaking, and going on social media. This is my stage right now. So yeah, it's like step by step. Everyone's got to start somewhere. And for me, I've been a wholesaler. I've done fix and flips. I know everything you guys need and every obstacle you're about to go through. I can speed it up for you guys if you guys can do what you do. So just want to throw that out there. That's what I've been doing.
I also want to mention, like this is a private lending event, and we also did raising, but it was really more private lending. If you guys want to see some private like lending opportunities and what they look like from my organization, you should just email us. We'll send you some deals so that way you can see what they look like. Let me see here. I'm gonna put up the information. Just email info@tristatemixer.com, but put on the subject interest in private lending. And then from there, we'll send you an investor questionnaire exactly like what Joe said. But even if you don't qualify, we just won't let you lend us money, but we can still let you see what the deals look like.
Yeah, it's a great way. Like the way I see it is, most people learn from doing. Jump in it and do it. If you email Nick, you get to learn it before you even start, and that's how you lower your risk. Start learning about what you want to do, because Rich Dad Poor Dad, like everyone read that book, right? Moving up from being an employee to self-employment to business owner to investor. But how many people are actually properly taught how to invest safely? It's really important that you guys get this education, because you guys work really hard for your money and you just don't want to lose it, so do your homework.
So we got 4 minutes left. I'm just gonna answer random questions that were asked. I'll ask Dave. I'll see what he says. Dave, for New York, we experience a high in the market, and people are predicting the market will crash next year. Once that happens, people say the property taxes will increase, which will increase the cost of doing business and rents. Do you think it's risky to start a real estate business in New York over the next few years? Or would you say, since the market might be at its lowest, that it's the best time to buy in?
That question's for me?
You can answer it if you want.
I mean,
That's a long question.
I answer how I do things, right? So I always look at the worst case scenario. Like I always look at the worst case scenario, and I start thinking about what would I do with a high real estate and high rent. Then I start thinking, well, if that happens, crap, like no one's gonna be competing with me. What should I do? First of all, I might need a lot of money, and what's my exit strategy? Can I fill it with a lot of rent, or is everything gonna be vacant? I sit there and I ask myself question after question of all my worst fears, like what could happen. But when I figure out everything, that's my game plan to then come into my investors and say, hey, look, whatever your worst fear is, it's kind of like saying everything's going to crash. All right, well, I'm going to go in there and buy because everything's cheap. Even if it goes down, my rent in Philly, I don't know New York, Philly will cover. I'll make a return on it. You gotta think of solutions. You can't just sit here and worry. So if you can think of come up with solutions for the worst case scenarios, when things get better, what happens? You just make a lot more money. So that's how I handle things. I hope that answered the question, because I don't know the New York market. I know the Philly market better. So I hope that helps.
The only difference between the two markets is that the rent is higher, the cost of acquisition is higher, and the foreclosure process in New York is higher. I mean, it's longer. It takes way longer. So that I think outweighs the benefits, especially in a like a market that's like, it's kind of like this, This is how I look at it. If something is just starting to fall, because next year it's not gonna like the market's not gonna like skydive from 100 feet down to zero like that. It goes at an angle. Would you agree? Right? The market itself, in terms of value, and so it's not skydiving, and so I think it's gonna go down at an angle if it does, and because of that, if it's gone down 20, like let's say it go down 15% in like 6 months, okay, you have to ask yourself, hey, entering right now, you are buying things at a 15% discount. If foreclosure is a mess, if blah 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 is a mess, is it worth actually acquiring these assets at a 15% discount? If it's not, I would wait another 6 months. You get what I'm saying? It's like because I've been in markets where it went from like I would say it fell about 75%. It's crazy, and you know, was it worth it when it fell 25? It's a risky market, and because it was a risky market, I waited, and because I waited, it fell another 25, and then I'm like, you know what? It's good right now. Uh, could it fall another 25? Absolutely, but because it was already 50% off, I bought, and then it fell 25%. Was I mad at myself? No, because I just buy more. It's like it'll average out. You don't want to wait. You don't want to time the market and try to buy at the very bottom, but you do want to time the market in terms of, is this number right now good for you to buy at the worst case scenario? If it is, then get in.
I'm going to say one more thing too, Nick. Like, just listening to your explanation, as things happen, you adapt, right?
Yeah.
And I had to say that many people don't know how to adapt. So I'm going to start off with, you know what? If you don't have that skill, like to adapt, because things will happen, choose an area or go to somewhere where you actually think is easier. Choose something easier where you're not challenging yourself all the time. And that's what I learned from Nick. Stop going for the challenges, because because you're from New York, I mean, doesn't mean you have to stay in New York. Go somewhere where you're actually comfortable and you're going to be learning New York.
You can go upstate New York. Yeah, you can go to upstate New York where numbers are cheaper. I also want to say something. This is what I wanted to say that I forgot. Steve Lloyd said this, and I loved it. He said, if you're going to lend money, make sure, at the worst case, you want to actually own the property that you're lending money on. That's powerful. Because at the worst case, it's going to become your property. Am I right? And so...
so you got to want that property.
Huh?
So you got to want that property. If you're going to lend, you should want it. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. You should want it yourself.
Something where you're like, I'm not sure if I like this property or this area. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's not just do I like Dave or Nick? Hey, do I want this property?
It should be both. Right. It should be like emotions, like you like the area, and you should also like the numbers. The numbers gotta make sense. It's gotta be practical, Well, that was one question, dude. Like, do we have
guys. No, there's a few, but it doesn't relate, Gotcha. Let me see. Yeah, some of the questions I don't even know the answer to.
All right, well, I guess
so it's not gonna be good. Let's just wrap it up. It's already been an hour and 30 minutes. Our audience has shrunk down to half. I think everybody's like actually at work and they can computer on.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. If you like it, and if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, guys. What you want to say anything else, Nick, Dave?
No, just gonna say goodbye.
All right, guys. Thank you.